Salutations everyone, the summer seam sale is finally out, and this is what my wallet looks like. I'm just kidding, I don't play PC games, it always looks like that. How to Train Your Dragon 2, great movie, go see it. It was a pretty slow news week as far as news goes. There weren't really any hits at all. About as many hits as Clayton Kershaw allowed on Wednesday night. And I was there, so yeah, that matters. It was actually really awesome. That explains why I only had 2 videos last week. I was down LA, caught 6 games, 5 victories, a no-hitter to clinch it. I got to see Korra and Topanga, got to see the Stanley Cup, go Kings, and it was just a great week, but the news wasn't that hot. Capcom has said that they are not renewing their takeover defense, being completely open to a hostile takeover, and they're just letting it see what happens. Basically, they're just opening up their car door, leave it unlocked, and be like, it's right there. I mean, it's still mine, but if you want it, just go ahead. Capcom, of course, one of the greatest producers of games for decades with Mega Man, Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, Street Fighter, just a whole bevy of long-standing awesome franchises that really haven't been doing so well lately with all the Mega Man cancellations and the disappointment of Resident Evil 6. And the last DMC wasn't that too well rated. But, I mean, they just releasing like 7 or 8, different Street Fighter games. They had a lot of success in the last generation with their own proprietary engine. But in recent years, Capcom really hasn't been able to do very well. So it makes sense that they're, allowing a hostile takeover to happen, if anyone wants to buy it, which I'm sure many companies are, looking towards. Ever since really Keiji Inafune left Capcom, things have been really declining, and this kind of seemed inevitable. Some people are thinking about what Microsoft might be going after it. Sony makes less sense because of how many billions of dollars they're losing every year. They might be taken over by a big third-party publisher, such as like an EA or an Ubisoft. Really, hopefully, the best outcome is what's best for the Capcom franchises. It really sucks having these great IPs up on the shelf for so long, and the fans want to play these games. I mean, Street Fighter has had a lot of success. All the Dead Risings have had a lot of success. Mega Mans have had, ever since Mega Man 10, they've really had 2 cancellations, is all Mega Man has had to show for, and their other franchises are struggling, so it'll be interesting to see what comes of it and who decides to buy it. Maybe Disney or Facebook. And speaking of Dead Rising, I myself am a huge fan of the series. The film rights have been sold to Legendary Pictures. Now, this shouldn't come as a shock to anyone since zombies are huge and hot and the women go crazy for them. It makes sense that a Dead Rising movie would eventually at least be purchased to have the domestic film rights, but not in the sense that you may be thinking. This is going to be one of Legendary's first digital productions, and it's going to be going through Crackle on Crackle.com. So it's not going to be a movie release in your theaters, but it's going to be shown on Crackle and then like your VODs and your DVDs and all other kinds of stuff. So very interesting. It's a new thing that they're trying with a pretty well-known franchise in Dead Rising. It'll be interesting to see what they are trying to do. Is it going to be Frank West or Chuck Green or, Nick Ramos or someone completely new? We have no idea, but interesting. Eric Chahi's classic adventure side-scrolling game, Another World, aka Out of This World, aka Mike Ruba, is going to be hitting PlayStation 4 next week, which is pretty cool. If you aren't familiar with Another World, it first came out on Amiga and Atari ST computers back in 1991, and then subsequently had some ports on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, and even a 20th anniversary edition, which hit a couple of years ago. And it's really popular. It's a cult classic made by one guy. Very brilliant art style, action. It's a really cool game. And they've remastered it, coming out on the PlayStation 4 and eventually as well for the PS3 and the PlayStation Vita with cross-save functionality between the platforms. with higher resolution, redrawn backdrops, and I personally can't wait to see what it looks like, because the game back in 1991 still looks really cool. That very, very different style of gameplay, and I mean, hopefully, the new one, really accentuates on that brilliant type of game style, and makes it look even prettier, and maybe something like this.
What's up, Mike? Makuba?
And if you're into beating a dead horse, Grand Theft Auto 5 has pushed back Heists once again. They were supposed to come out last year, and then there was like, we're pushing it back, and then they said a couple months ago, it's coming out in spring. And well, since there's only a week left of spring left, they said they're pushing it back again. They have no release date. They don't even have a season that they say it's going to come out. So, I mean, I don't know if this thing's ever going to come out. Probably slated for sometime after Star Wars 1313 and StarCraft Ghost, because this is embarrassingly bad. Diablo 3's 2.10 patch is going to be coming out soon, which is going to bring out a lot of new content, not just, fixes and balances that they have been coming out ever since Reaper of Souls. It's going to be introducing a new seasons, which is going to be very much akin to Diablo 2's ladder system, in that you start from the beginning and you have a lot of different challenges and things to do and leaderboards and such things like that. Also, it's going to be coming out with, new specific prizes to seasons, as well as like new items that after the season will go into normal weapon loot rotation. They're also rolling out a greater rifts, in that every time you kill a Rift Guardian in your normal Nephilim rifts, there's a chance of it dropping a greater rift key, which is very similar in how, the normal rifts work, except you're going to be timed, and if you complete it in a certain time, you get to another rift, and they're going to be increasingly harder. All the loot is going to be centered on the Guardian itself, so you don't really have to worry about trash mobs and such. The meter will go down faster if you kill higher ranked enemies, such as, your elite packs and such. So, it's really cool, especially, how well Reaper of Souls was received and how many fans have really liked it. It's good that they're keeping fresh new content that'll keep a lot of players satisfied for months to come. And in the Watch Dogs scandal this week, if you haven't been paying attention, a hacker unlocked a mod to a very, very early graphics package in the game that makes it look a lot better, very much to what we saw in the original E3 trailer and what we were promised the game was going to look like, back when it was announced. When the game came out, people were like, this isn't as pretty as we thought it was going to be. And turns out, these graphics packages are still in the game. And in a game about hacking, a hacker found a way to make the game look even prettier. Ubisoft said that the reason that they took out this graphics package in the actual game was that it hindered performance of the game. It lowered the fidelity of the visuals, and the game just didn't perform very well. And while some people have said, yeah, that's true, there have been some, performance issues after activating this mod, pretty much everyone says that the game, looks a ton better. So, it's very interesting, this story. A lot of people said that they thought Watch Dogs was rushed, and maybe this would have been something they would have been able to fix if they had more time. But really, who knows? It's really a double-edged sword when it comes to things like this. I mean, if the game had these great graphics, but, hindered the gameplay performance, people were like, oh, you didn't, you screwed up on, the game engine, and now that people found out, the mod to make the game look this great, so now I'm thinking, like, why doesn't it look this good? So, it really wouldn't be able to please people either way unless, the game was absolutely perfect. But with a big, release like this, that's really hard to do. As I mentioned last week, Legend of Korra Book 3 had their announcement trailer, and we were just kind of, as we do every year, wondering when we're going to get a release date. And it usually gets revealed at Comic-Con, and I was expecting the same thing to happen this year. But all of a sudden, they come out of nowhere and say, drops in a week. That's crazy. I'm all aboard the hype train. So that's just awesome. It's very, very exciting news. Can't wait. Completely unexpected. And I am all aboard that hype train. As all of you may know, I don't really give a flying fuck about console wars, because it's a ludicrous thing that people keep trying to revive ever since it actually meant something back in the 90s, which, it doesn't mean anything now. But the friendly folks over at Movoto Blog give a state-by-state graphic of, who likes what console throughout the entire country. And it was really interesting. 22 states preferred the Xbox One, 19 states preferred the PlayStation 4, which of course leaves a lot of states, up for grabs. Wii U obviously didn't grab any of those, so those remaining states were, just too close to really declare a winner. This pretty much, translates well in what we've seen in sales about, they're both doing very well, which people seem to keep forgetting. But what's interesting is where the popularity is across the nation. Both the West Coast and the East Coast are both completely dominated by Xbox One, while the heartland of America is pretty much dominated by PlayStation 4. And also very interesting and telling data, we found out that the state that was most excited and most likes the Xbox One is Nevada, and the one that likes it the least is Mississippi. Also, we learned that the state that loves PlayStation 4 the most, also Nevada. And the state that liked it the least, also Mississippi. Goes to show there's fucking nothing to do in Nevada except play video games. That state has absolutely nothing in it. I've been to Vegas, it's boring as hell. If I wanted to be bored out of my mind, I'd just watch the World Cup. As far as Mississippi goes, what do you have better time to do? Be racist? I don't know. I'm sorry if you live in Mississippi or if you watch soccer for some reason. But, interesting. Very interesting. Anyways, that's all the news I have for you guys this week. Please make sure to check out the links in the description to all the stories that I mentioned. You could, press some buttons that do things. I don't know. Check them out. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next week.